Welcome to Bar Fantasy Baseball Podcast. This is our triple play edition, and I would be remiss if I didn't have the triple play fantasy on this episode. We got Art, we got D. Mendy, we got Eric. Little Cheesecake and Doc D. Mendy are in the house. Hey, fellas, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us. We are excited to be a part of the triple play that you got going on here. And I am pumped to try to beat these guys down in the game you got planned tonight.
I just appreciate you having us on. It's nice going on a podcast and not having to host or listen to David host.
You don't even host. God.
Oh, Great start already. Great start already. So we already talked about all of the scoring and how we're going to frame this up a little bit, okay? So we're just going to dive right in, okay? We're 4 days into the season. Art, what are you seeing so far?
A lot of injuries. A lot of things are scaring me. Closing situations are turning my stomach. But Jordan Montgomery looked pretty good today. And that makes me happy. So it's always the last bit of information that comes in that puts the smile on your face. You know how it is?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Jomo looked real good. And for those Yankees fans, I think Stanton finally hit a bomb. Was that a grand slam today?
Grand slam, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Everybody loves to see those. D. Mendy, where are you at? 4 days in. We already talked about the injuries. Those are nasty. Did you cover your guys, or did you back up your guys in your big leagues, or are you just straight to the waiver wire?
I had a couple. I had Luis Ariz help me a little bit in one of my leagues, and now he's going to get that third base eligibility. It looks like really soon, and he's been huge to have to plug in. My guy Dylan Cease pitched yesterday, was not super happy with his first outing, but I do believe the Angels have a tough lineup. And I mean, be remiss if we don't talk about Shohei Ohtani, because everybody else is. To see him throw 100 and then to hit a home run in the same game is just absolutely nuts. But like Cheesecake said, the injuries obviously have been kind of taking over the landscape, all the mess at the closing situation right now. Who's going to step in? You have Julian Merriweather going for like $450 in FAB, and he already doesn't look like I think Jordan Romano came in for the save today, if I'm not mistaken. So like it's an absolute mess, but I'm here for all the chaos. I love it.
Doc, did you blow your wad on Merriweather on Sunday night?
No, I actually haven't spent any FAB money yet. I feel like I'm in a good position right now. I'm kind of letting the others spend and then going to be a little bit more aggressive. I think it's interesting. We still can't trust the Rockies. We thought Arenado being gone might free up some playing time. Garrett Hampson got benched the second day. Sam Hilliard can't start consistently. So it's like, just don't trust anyone on the Rockies.
You can't do it. You're absolutely right. It's crazy to me. D. Mendy, you pointed it out right away. People blowing FAB. We're 4 days in. We've had 2 FAB periods, and people have blown 40% on the FAB on the unknown. Like, one of the things that we stressed here at OBFB was don't go diving into the unknowns, because with COVID and all these injuries that are going to happen, avoid the unknowns. And people just dove right in, spent 40%. There's 25 more weeks. It's insanity to me. Okay. But I'm glad you guys didn't fall into that trap. Okay.
No, I mean, it's like, you're like, I'll throw, I think I threw $34 out there for Merriweather. I was like, I know it's not going to win him, but it's like, hey, at least if for some reason everybody had the same feelings I did and was like, I'm not going to throw a bid, I was like, well, then maybe I'll win him. So I feel like as long as you can throw a bid, just don't go crazy with it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the sneaky way to get by, right? And just as we pointed out already, he's not even the closer.
No, I mean, he again, like, pitched 2 safe situations, and then today he wasn't in the game. I mean, obviously, everybody I'm sure that's listening knows you got to stay up to date on Twitter. Frank Stample just tweeted out that Amir Garrett just got the save with Doolittle in the 7th and Lucas Sims in the 8th. So again, like, you see that now. Is that going to be how it is from now on? Like, it's just one of those things you have to watch trends and see if they actually do have one guy, or if it's a committee thing. So, and just keeping up to date with all that stuff. It's just, this
kind of reminds me a few years ago, Lou Trevino had like 2 saves in the first week, and he was in a setup role. And I remember everybody rushed and got him. And I think he had like 1 save the rest of the season. I think it was when Liam Hendricks first had his breakout year, and Blake Trinan was the closer at that point. And it's like, in these early season situations, I think you don't read too much into it. I think there's very few bullpens where it's one guy that's going to do it. So
I'm going to ask each of you this. Little Cheesecake, start us off, though. Are you anti-save guy? Or are you pro-save guy? Do you embrace the chaos, or you just drive you crazy?
It depends on the league. If it's a league that I can afford to be anti-save guy, I am anti-save guy because it saves so much headache, so much heartache, and the return on investment for drafting relief pitchers is so low, I think. But if there's a league like with an overall component, I'm going early and I'm going hard at saves because I want to be cornering the market. I want to get a distinct advantage in that statistical category. But so to me, like if I can, I'm avoiding it because I just don't like that smoke. But if I have to go in, I'm going in guns blazing. That's my strategy.
If you're going for the win, Art is going early, but maybe in head-to-head leagues, he's suggesting I ain't going there. I'll get my points elsewhere. D. Mendy, how you feel about that?
Yeah, like he said, it's kind of league context dependent. I know in our home league, I purposely didn't draft saves as a points league, so I wasn't actively trying to go get a guy. I waited till the last few rounds of my draft to really push for that. But yeah, like he said, if there's an overall component, my approach is I haven't been getting 2 elite guys. I just go for 1. So I don't want to waste, me personally, 2 spots that early on relief pitching. So I'll go get one of the elite 6 guys like that came out. You have the guys that are going to be the guy. You have the Liam Hendricks of the world. You have the like those type of guys, the Josh Haders, and my guy was Raisel Iglesias. So I would always, when I see the run start, I would make sure I could grab Iglesias before the run was over. And that would be kind of, all right, I got my 1 elite, and then I'm going to wait till the very end and then try to grab a couple guys that I think could get the job that I'll just kind of bank on. If they don't, I can just churn out those 2 spots.
Let's stay there for a second before we run to Doc. Iglesias got blown up already, right?
It's a non-save situation.
Yeah, he's only good in save situations.
He blows up in non-save situations.
Yeah.
So he had a little bit of a home run problem 2018, 2019 as well. In the short season last year in 2020, he was able to curtail it, but he only pitched a few innings. You still nervous, or you feeling strong about it?
I still feel pretty good about it because he's, I think, they have Mayer come in there right there behind him, but it's one of those things that they gave him a lot of money to close. And so he's going to have the job. And again, he's one of those guys that I think he came out and said, I don't like pitching multi-innings. I don't like the fireman. I want to be a closer. He came out, said what he wants his role to be, what he's comfortable in. So I think that they know that's the smart way to use him. Again, I'm hoping that the blowups aren't quite as common as they were in non-save situations. Obviously, it's not a great start so far, but I do think he's going to lead the major leagues in save this year. So that's why I was trying to get him where I could.
Bold statement, D. Mendy. That's a point. I'm going to write that down. Doc, how you drafting saves? Where are we going here?
Yeah, it's very similar to David. I try to get a top tier guy regardless of the format I'm in, because if you can get a Hader, if you can get an Iglesias, if you can get a Liam Hendricks, somebody that's on a good team that's probably going to have a lot of opportunities, I think it's either going to help you in the points leagues for the relief pitching category or being in a categories league like TGFBI. After that, I kind of punt on the category. Somebody like Anthony Bass, I know he blew up in his first outing, but that's someone that was pegged as a closer for a Marlins team. A lot of times, like a team like the Marlins, they might be like under 500-ish, but they're not going to blow people out. Probably a lot of their games that they win are going to be close games where they're going to have that save opportunity. So I kind of wait. And I also look, what type of manager do they have? Is it going to be a Kevin Cash where you don't know and there's too many cooks in the kitchen? Or is it a Tony La Russa where he traditionally goes with one guy and makes you feel even more confident in taking a Liam Hendricks?
La Russa just blew it last night. I don't know if you guys stayed up late. You probably didn't, that West Coast game. He absolutely muffed it late in that game. Unfortunately, Jared Walsh walked it off.
He's out of practice. The man's out of practice.
He's definitely rusty. La Russa is definitely rusty. I'm really excited for the White Sox. I'm really curious to see where that goes for them. But let's move on to the quote-unquote brawl. Little Cheesecake, did you see the little scrum between Nick Castellanos and Yadi last night?
I didn't pay much attention to it because I thought it was nothing.
Right.
Because I mean, he showed some emotion. Yachty went back at him. I thought that was it. I thought that would be the end of it. 2-game suspension. It's ridiculous.
It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, what does Manfred want, Mendy? Does he want robots with no emotions?
I guess so. I to be honest, I haven't seen it yet, and I haven't pulled up while we're talking. Actually, I had seen, like, I didn't know anything about it until I woke up this morning. I mean, that's kind of actually. I mean, that's not a suspension. I fine him like 50,000 or whatever the normal baseball fine is. I mean, he did kind of look down on him and kind of punk him a little bit with that, but that's not a 2-game suspension. That's nuts. That's a suspension.
So during his at bat, they went high and tight on him, right? So he was a little, it got in his ear a little bit. Doc, what do you think about this? He showed a little emotion, got pumped up, he scored. What's wrong with that?
Nothing. I didn't think much of it either. I saw it the other day, and I'm going to pull it up again because I didn't really think much of it. And then I saw he got suspended, and it's like he got suspended for this 2 games, and Amir Garrett got suspended 8 games last year for trying to fight the entire Pittsburgh Pirates. Just like, where's the consistency?
He appealed it, and I'm going to, I don't want to bet anything substantial, but I would be willing to bet that they reduce it to 1.
They reduce it to 1, but he shouldn't be suspended at all. Like, it's a competitive game. It's early in the season. You're playing a rival. Like, what do you like Tambo said, what do you want them to do? Be robots?
Is it more Molina's fault because he went at Casty for flexing on him, or is Casty in trouble because he got up and was jacked? I mean, I feel like Molina escalated the situation, and I'm a Cubs fan, but I got respect for Molina, so I'm not just talking crap right now. I feel like Molina escalated the situation because all it was I scored, I'm pumped, I'm gonna shout, let's go. I think he said let's go or something like that. It wasn't like
you know what this kind of reminds me of? When somebody dunks on someone in basketball and they get really hyped up, and it's not like, oh, I'm in your face, like I'm pointing at you. It's like, damn, I just threw it down on someone. I'm a little hyped. And then the person that got dunked on is Yachty, and then they retaliate, and then it's like, oh wow, this is something that's turned into bigger than what it needs to be. And it's just like a guy can't get excited. He made a really nice play. Like Castellanos, that was a great play to be safe at home.
Yeah, I mean, having just watched it, I have the freshest memory out of everybody here.
I just watched it now.
But he did stand. Like the Yachty was coming to the dude's defense because I didn't remember the pitcher that covered home, but he stepped. It was almost like the equivalent if you like when Allen Iverson stepped over Tyronn Lue. Like he like looked down like at him and like almost like kind of something graphic I won't say, but like pretty much like he just was like asserting his dominance, and I can see why they took offense to it. But again, I wouldn't suspend that, but I can see why they rallied like and got into it.
Castellanos absolutely flexed on the pitcher, right? But Yachty was the one who made physical contact, right? If we're doing that on the streets, if I see one of you guys in the city, that might be assault. Who knows, right? Right?
That's normal everyday life in Baltimore.
That's right.
Yeah, there you
go. I'm a cheesecake on this one. Like it looks like Yachty was the one who was the aggressor, but I totally understand if you want to call it the defense on that one. I can't even believe they called it a brawl, right? Castellanos completely walked off and didn't even like jaw with him at the end. So I don't understand this one at all. Let's move on. How do you guys feel about the rules so far in this season? No DH in the NL. We're still doing the long innings or 7th inning doubleheaders, these type of things. Runner starts on second base for extras. Are you in? Are you out? How do you feel about that?
For me first?
Go ahead.
The 7-inning doubleheaders, I don't like. I feel like a game needs to be 9 innings, especially if you're talking about stats. Like I want the stats to be equal. It's like, hey, if they had 2 extra innings, that could have been another home run for somebody. That could have been, 3 more strikeouts for this person. So I'm not a fan of those. You're losing innings for people to accumulate data for us to be able to look at. And then as far as the runner on second, I understand like they're like, oh, we're trying to get the games to end, but I don't like that either. I don't think the team deserves to win in that sense. It's like the whole strategy changes. And it's like, at that point, I'm like, then you might as well just call game a tie, because you're basically tainting the game at that point. That's at least for me. And the no DH in the National League, I think once Zach Gallen hurt himself, I feel like that's when they should have woken up and realized. And again, like, you have the pitchers like Madison Bumgarner that can hit. That's fine. Then literally he can pinch hit. Like, put him in a game and let him pinch hit if he really wants to hit that bad. If he's that good of a hitter. But I don't want to see the 90+% of the other pitchers just stand there and look at 3 strikes and sit down. And I know it's kind of an old school thing, but I feel like we're kind of, with all the StatCast data and all the analytics we talk about and all this new age of baseball, that's an aspect that I would like to see in both leagues, just to make it more fun, give more jobs to other players. That's the rule change I would like to see. The other ones can go.
I mean,
Mendy, the
David,
fantasy baseball runs pure for D Mendy, right? He wants those stats.
I do.
Jack, how do you feel about it?
Well, David is just disrespecting Zach Wheeler, who had like 3 RBIs the other day, and Jacob deGrom, who had an RBI single, helping himself out tonight. But I agree, and I think the 7-inning doubleheaders I understand, because once again we're still in a pandemic, and it's like, optimally we'd love 9 games, but if an entire series between the Nationals and Mets gets canceled and it's the first weekend, and you want to try to get all 162 games in, you're going to have to do some shaving off certain aspects. So that I understand, I don't like, but I know that's the reality. The runner on second I really don't like, because it completely changes the strategy. You can have someone that's fast versus someone that's slow. And that's kind of something I don't like. It pads wins and losses for pitchers that I don't think are necessarily deserving of either outcome. And the DH should have just stayed that in the NL. I know I joke that pitchers are getting hits, but like David said, when Zach Gallen got hurt, it's kind of like, was he really going to be an effective hitter anyway as a pitcher? Now you're just, kind of derailing the Diamondback season, because who knows? Like, some of these pitchers, they probably don't want to hit, but they're not going to come out and say it. I know Greinke did in the past, but like David said, it's time to evolve, especially since you set the precedent last season of DH universal.
So, Art, there's actually some negative consequences to these long games, these 14, 15, 16. We're talking about, D. Mendy's talking about extra stats, but what are we talking about when it's 0 for 8? Mm-hmm. That's a tough day.
It's awful, and it also taxes bullpens. You end up with first baseman pitching, or whoever has the best arm on the infield coming in to pitch. It ends up in a weird situation. I like, those types of games are rare and they're interesting, but they really are taxing on a team over the long run. The tail of an 18-inning game lasts for weeks on a Major League Baseball team. And I'm going to stand up, I'm old school. I'm going to stand up for pitchers hitting, but mostly because I find that, people poo on the strategy of it, but a double switch is one of the more strategic moves that a manager can make in a game. Learning pinch hitting for the pitcher, switching in a player and taking out a different player for the pitcher. That increases, to me, the interest in a game, that increases the usability of your bench spots for a manager in the National League. To me, a National League manager has to manage a lot more than an American League manager, and taking that away does take some of the strategy out. But I agree on the points that no one likes to see a pitcher getting injured. But I'm going to fight back anyone who says that the American League game is more interesting because there's a DH, because the strategy, to me, makes it much more interesting. 7-inning doubleheaders, I'm with Doc. That's a pragmatic choice. Like, you're gonna have games missed. And like we were saying before we started, the Nationals and Braves, I think, are going a doubleheader on Wednesday to make up for a game they missed today, because the Nationals were still recovering from COVID. To me, it's just a pragmatic thing. Runner on second base, I think it'll get the game go over sooner. And am I wrong? If you score with a runner on second base with your first time out, does the team then have a chance to match you? Am I wrong about that? Like, if you score in the first inning, like the top of the 10th, the team will have a chance to match you because they'll come up in the bottom of the 10th with a runner on second base. So there's no unfair advantage to it to me. And that to me is any way that comes out there's not an unfair advantage. I'm fine with it, especially when it comes to extra innings. I don't mind it at all. But I'm fighting for a pitcher hitting, and here I am talking too much again.
The one thing I was going to say to you though is like, so you have 7-inning games. If you have a pitcher go 7 innings, they pitch a complete game, and on their stat sheet, it's going to have a complete game pitched, right?
Right.
So should that be called complete game if you're pitching 7 innings? Because the people that accumulated complete games in the past weren't pitching 7 innings. So it's like it already is kind of tainting. It's like, oh, this guy's pitched 5 complete games last year. He's an innings eater. And it's like, okay, well, 4 of those 5 were 7-inning games, and they was at 100 pitches. Like, those like that's a good start. But that's not, I wouldn't say, oh my God, he's an innings eater because he has 4 complete games and 4 of those were the doubleheader games. It's like that's the part where I'm saying I think things get messy when you start doing that. And that's the part that I play on that specific point. That's
a great point. Interesting. I've actually never thought about that. What are they going to do in the Hall, D. Mendy? They're going to put an asterisk next to the guy with the 7th inning shutouts?
I mean, heck, if that's what gets them in and out, like on my book, they're out. Like, like a 7-inning complete games, you ain't making it in.
I mean, come on. People don't even throw 7 anymore. Barrios had a no-hitter through 6, and they took him out.
Yeah.
That's true.
I think there's maybe 4 guys that went 7 innings so far. So it's a good point, too. The baseball is definitely evolving as we go, fellas. It's been interesting. It took me a long while to get there. I actually have no problem with any of these rules. Okay. I did not miss one pitcher batting all year last year. I did not care. I totally forgot about it, to be honest with you. It was just gone, and I'm okay with it, right? It is what it is. So far, we've had a lot of good pitching. We've had some really bad pitching, and from some of the best. SP's blown up. Luis Castillo, rough day. Clayton Kershaw was in Colorado, gave up a lot of hits and a couple runs. Jack Flaherty for the Cardinals. If the Cardinals don't have Jack Flaherty, who do they got? Art, start us off. Are you comfortable with these guys? Do you have ownership of any of these guys? Are you feeling okay about it?
I have ownership of Castillo. I have ownership of Kershaw. I have a lot more Kershaw than Castillo, actually, because I found his price to be so nice. I thought he was just going to continue rolling. I'm not worried about Kershaw. Like you said, it was Colorado. Anyone can give up a bunch of base hits, a bunch of hits in Colorado. I'm not too worried about him. They're going to protect him. The team is strong. To me, Flaherty is the one who worries me. I already had issues with his what you could expect from his innings, and also that his price was being dictated by about 2 months worth of pitching so far in his entire career. So to me, I thought, this was bias confirmation to have him come out and pitch poorly. But Castillo, he's definitely worrisome. He's the one who I'm keeping an eye on. Want to see how he does his next start.
Doc, Little Cheesecake just limped into a victory lap there on Jack Flaherty after one outing. How do you feel about it?
So I actually feel the exact opposite, and I'm glad I get to debate. Who gives up 5 runs at Colorado? I mean, do they have a good hitter in that lineup? Like Charlie Blackmon, maybe, but he's slow to start the season. Trevor Story, maybe. I don't know. I mean, when Trevor Bauer comes in and then Strut does his McGregor strut the next day and kind of shuts the lineup down a little bit, I'm not really concerned about the velo drops because of the weather in the first game. But I think everybody is in love with Luis Castillo because of his changeup, and they want it to work, and it's such a good compliment to his fastball. But he gets hit a lot. And his ERA last year, 3.21. The year before, 3.4. Those are good, but it's not. I think everybody's, SP streamer love him, but he had him as his SP4 to begin the year. And I was like, that's a little bit too high for me. I actually really like Flaherty. Everybody's saying that half season. That was 99 innings pitched that he had a sub-1 ERA. And last year, if you take out his 9 earned run game that he had like a 3.1 ERA. And he probably would have pitched more innings, but there was a 26-day layoff from when he first pitched to the Cardinals' next game. So I think I love the body sample he has. Look, is he ever going to have a sub-ERA again? No, but I think he could have a low 3s ERA, which I'm perfectly happy taking.
Doc's bringing the stats. and he's getting the points. D. Mendy, how do you feel about these three guys?
So I'll touch on Luis Castillo first. I didn't have much of him. I had him in one league, and then I swung a trade for him. And one of the things that I had forgotten was about Jonathan India taking third, and then Eugenio Suarez taking shortstop. I'm really nervous about that for that defense. Even though he has good strikeout stuff, he's a heavy ground ball pitcher. And I mean, you already saw he made 2 errors in his first start with him there. Maybe it gets better throughout the year, but it's mentioned all across the fantasy baseball world. It's like if you're a pitcher and you give up what should be an out and it ends up being a base runner, it can throw your whole game off just because it's hard to shake that, especially the next batter hits a home run and then you're even more shaken off. And so I am worried about that aspect. As far as his velocity being down, like Doc mentioned, it was cold. It wasn't snowing there necessarily like it was in Cleveland, but it was really cold there. That's why I think his velocity was down so much. That's the thing I'm watching most in his next start, is to see if his velocity gets back to where it was last year. That will be something big for me. And he's playing against the Pirates. So if he has trouble against the Pirates, then that's going to be something that I'm going to be a little bit more concerned at that point. Clayton Kershaw, he's Clayton Kershaw. I'm not too worried about it. I think he's going to finish the year. He'll have probably a low 3, high 2 ERA. He's going to have, probably a K per 9 or a little above a K per 9. Nothing flashy, but he's going to be a good solid SP2 or an amazing SP3 if you stacked pitching early and were able to swing that somehow. So I'm not too worried about it. But as far as the Jack Flaherty, I'm not a fan.
You guys are crazy. You guys are so crazy.
You're only saying that because you drafted him high in TGFBI.
Oh, I love Jack Flaherty. I'm willing to defend that. But also the fact you guys think Clayton Kershaw is going to have a low 2 high or a high 2, low 3 ERA. I think this year he kind of loses it a little bit.
I mean, we can see. The one thing, again, I will say with Flaherty is he's a heavy 2-pitch guy. He goes fastball, slider, and his slider is a great pitch. But when you look besides the slider and the fastball, his curveball last year was hit for a 263 batting average. His changeup was hit for a 500 batting average. So there are certain aspects that I'm just, yes, he had that amazing 99 inning spurt, but hasn't been consistent outside of that, just like Cheesecake mentioned. And it's one thing if it's like, hey, like you're getting him in like the 5th or 6th round, but he was costing you a pretty high draft capital. That's the part that I wasn't a fan of personally.
Clayton Kershaw hasn't had an ERA over 3.03 since 2008. Doc's saying it's going to be up. Art, it sounds like you want to interject there a little bit. What do you say?
Well, I was just pushing back on Doc's point about Colorado. In 2020, Colorado was the average 1.4 runs at 140% scoring compared to the average stadium based upon park factors on ESPN. It is still a hitter's park. Hits were 1.3% of the average park. Those little duck snorts, they find holes in Colorado. They don't find holes in Los Angeles, and he's going to be pitching in Los Angeles a lot more than that. I have no problem with a 5 earned run start at Colorado first game of the season from Clayton Kershaw. Like Tony said, 3.03.
Let me ask you one question before we move on. You're absolutely right. Clayton Kershaw isn't going back to Coors at all. So over under 3.03 going for the rest of the season, Clayton Kershaw. Art, what do you say?
I'm going under.
Doc.
I'm going to go under, but barely.
Okay. D-Mendy, 3.03 for Clayton Kershaw, over or under?
I'll say it's over, but I'll say it's like a 3.2 or something, or like a 3.15.
Can I just make one point real quick? So I know this is a random pitcher and a random stat, but Antonio Senzatella, who everybody probably thinks is bad, last year at home in 34.1 innings, he had a 2.1 ERA, and on the road he had a 4.62 ERA. People can pitch well in Colorado, especially
Antonio Senzatella figured it out.
If he can do it, Clayton Kershaw can. All right.
Why not everyone else? Interesting point. He's getting the point. He's getting the point for that. That's incredible. I never expected to talk about Sensintella today. Let me tell you. You guys mentioned the injuries early in the podcast, in the show. Let's talk about it. Mondesi, before the season, okay, this is a polarizing player. We all know what he's capable of. He didn't lose a leg, didn't strain a calf. It's an oblique. D-Mendy, where are you at on Mondesi? Do you own him? If so, why? If not, why not?
I thought you were just getting ready to poop on him. Yeah, I don't own him in any of the 10 leagues that I drafted. And that was just, again, I like Mondesi, but it's just one of those things. Again, I just could never get down with the draft price. And I don't ever think it's weird if people do take him because he can literally win you steals by himself. But I'm not worried about it if I owned him. It's an oblique injury, which obliques aren't great, but they were very cautious with him. They didn't let him try to play through it. This sounds like they were like, hey, we know if we're going to compete this season, we need him in the lineup. So I think when he does come back, it sounds like just a few more weeks. I think he'll be fine. I'm not worried.
Mondesi is a boomer bust guy. I think Eric Doc at Triple Play Fantasy is a boomer bust guy. How do you feel about Mondesi?
So I took him in our points league because he fell to the 16th round and I needed a shortstop. And I feel like that was still too early to take him. I'm a little worried. He was actually dealing with a foot issue before, and he's entirely based on his game is entirely based on stolen bases. And that means he either has to get hits or he has to take walks. And I'm just not as confident because he's a very streaky hitter. And I don't like relying on players that do stolen bases. Like, so for example, Malik Smith a couple of years ago led the majors with 46, but at some point he got demoted during the season. So I think it's very important when you play TGFBI. Obviously, it's a category, but I feel like MLB now is such a power ball, and things like sacrifice hits and stolen bases are kind of a little bit, shoved under the mat. So I'm worried about his value moving forward.
Art, what do you think, man?
I mean, I know my process in owning a team, and I would have a lot of trouble with him putting up bad weeks, but I know that the key to Mondesi is just holding on to him, because he's going to put up those big weeks. He's going to put up, and if you look at last season, 2020, he was hitting 182 coming into September. He was hitting 209 going into the last week of the season. And by the end of the season, he was hitting nearly 260. So this is the hot streaks for Mondesi are so hot that they carry the entire season's production for him. And you have to keep putting him out there because you just don't know when they're going to come. He had 16 stolen bases in a month last year. He had half of his extra base hits in a week last year. And if you look at him on the whole, he was, a top 15, top 20 hitter in all of baseball last year. And most of it came within about a week of the entire season. So for me, I know that I'd be biting my nails waiting for that week to come. So I draft him in best ball leagues only when I don't have to manage it, when I don't have to look at him crushing me week after week, waiting for that big week to come. But I know that if you get him, he's a great piece. But I think that what people have trouble with is figuring out how to build around him. And I don't think anyone has the best answer for that. But I think that, you could have him and he could end up in a top 10 total fantasy player. But, you have to have the guts to stick with him when he's stinking. The oblique injury is a little bit more concerning for me. Oblique injuries tend to linger. Grade 1 oblique strains, according to the Health and Injury Tracking System, lasts about 27 to 30 days. So the 2-week timeline for him, I think, is a little short. But then, like I said, because he gets his stats in bunches, when he comes back, you hold on to him, you insert him into the lineup as soon as he's back. He might come out hot. You never know with Mondesi.
Little Cheesecake don't want that headache. I don't want that headache either. Doc, this wasn't a headache to me at all. In my opinion, I wasn't touching Dinelson Lamet. We know there was a strain there. We know that there was a tear there. And finally, despite pitching pretty well through spring training, UCL strain on the DL. You got any Dinelson Lamet at all?
No, he's a 1.5 pitcher. I think Simeone or Doug called him that, a 1.5 pitcher kind of guy.
Pitcher.
Pitcher. And the thing is, too, I don't even think his spot was locked up. I mean, San Diego loaded on arms this offseason, and they have a lot of prospects as well. And Clevenger is missing the entire year. So I think they're going in it. They're being aggressive this year. And they said, look, we're going to anticipate some people are getting hurt. Let's trade for Musgrove. Let's trade for Snell. We'll have Lamet here. We have Paddock. So I didn't have any shares of him.
D-Mendy, this was insanity to me. How about you?
Yeah, I couldn't do it. I couldn't pull the trigger just because the warning signs were there. I did some research on him for an article this offseason, and he had the plasma injections, and they said that they're like the only other person that had ever had those injections was Garrett Richards, and he ended up getting Tommy John surgery not too long after that. So that, again, for the little bit we do have to use, I just was like, look, I'm not one of those guys like, oh, he's hurt, I'm not drafting him. But with something like that, I was just like, it sounds like I'm just giving up a roster spot. You're hoping that you maybe get 30, 40 innings or something maybe before he gets hurt at best case scenario. But it sounds like it's a matter of when and not if.
I didn't know that stat on Garrett Richards. You got 2 points for that, D-Mendy. I like that a lot. I like to learn. When I have people on, I like to learn, and I appreciate that, right?
Oh, yeah.
This one probably bummed us out a little bit. I didn't see it coming. I doubt you guys did too. Sixto Sanchez got optioned before the season got started. I don't think anyone saw that coming. And then little shoulder inflammation. A, Art, do you guys have any Sixto Sanchez? And B, are you holding?
I have a lot of Sixto Sanchez because I really liked what he showed, and I thought that we would see some growth from him this year. I'm holding on to him just because I think he's too good, and I drafted him too high. He's like 110, 120 pick. And to me, that's just too early to give up this quickly. I feel like if you can weather the month and a half, 6 weeks that he's out, then you have to try it because he's too good once he comes back. But it's really frustrating to see this. I wonder if them putting at the alternate training site had anything to do. Maybe the shoulder was flaring up before. I mean, that's just purely speculation on my part.
So, Doc, we know Sixto is on the IL, but we can't put him there because he's in the minors. This is a problem for us fantasy guys. What are you doing with Sixto?
Well, fortunately, I didn't draft any of him, and I like him a lot, but everybody was more bullish and willing to take him at a higher spot. For me, I think last year with no minors, either pitchers were brought up because teams wanted to expose them, like the Casey Mizes and the Sixto Sanchez's, but then other teams like the Padres said, we're not bringing up Mackenzie Gore. And I looked and I said, he's 22 years old. I think the Marlins benefited from expanded playoffs last year. I don't think they're in contention. I think they play in the toughest division. So I thought that he was going to have a little bit of an innings restriction. You have to hold him. He's way too talented. And like Art said, you probably spent way too high of a pick on him. And the worst feeling is when you can't stand anyone, you cut bait with them, somebody picks them up, and then they go off, and you just hate yourself. So I'd rather hold someone and say, okay, well, I bit the bullet. I'd made a bad pick rather than having somebody else benefit from my selection.
Great point from Doc. What if you're in a head-to-head league, you drop Sixto and you see this guy down in the semifinals coming back with Sixto versus you, who you drop? That's a problem, D-Mendy. You going to pull that trigger?
I'm not pulling it yet. No. I'd have Sixto in like one or two, not as much. There was problems. He threw hard, but he wasn't missing too many bats last year. So that was one of the things that kind of stuck out to me a little bit with him. But again, and before he got hurt, I think everybody was like, okay, they're just trying to manipulate where his innings are going to be. It's not a question of like, hey, we're trying to do a service time thing, because it wasn't service time at all. They're trying to have his innings be more meaningful while they contend later on in the season. So it seemed like a safe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it was going to be. Part of me still isn't concerned with this. I know anytime you see a shoulder injury on a pitcher, you should be. But like Cheesecake said, maybe something flared up before they sent him down to the alternative site. It's kind of been a little bit hush-hush. Like there hasn't been anything that's come out. It's like, it seems bad, or it kind of just seems like it's been one of those things. Like they announced it, and it's kind of just been dead since then. So I think it's going to be better news than not I think he'll be back. I don't know when, but I would not be scared. I would be holding on to him unless for some reason my entire team was obliterated with injuries and I had to drop him.
I got one share of Sixto Sanchez in a deep league, and I gotta hold on to it because the rest of the waiver wire is straight garbage. So I'm just praying at this point. We're doing downers right now. We're talking about injuries. We're gonna go down a little bit more. We got to talk about COVID. The Mets haven't played a single game of baseball yet because the Nats broke out. We're not entirely sure who it had. They haven't announced it. Rumor is Schwarber, Lester, Josh Harrison, and Alex Avila potentially. But we also saw Trey Turner and Josh Bell not on the field today. D-Medi, will stay with you on this one. COVID is not going away this season yet. Hopefully soon. What are you doing? How are you preparing for this? Did you load up on multi-eligible guys?
Yeah, I made sure towards the end of my draft to draft as many multi-position eligible guys as I could, just for exactly like you said, that reason. Coincidentally, I also don't have very many Nats or Mets, so it kind of worked out okay, except for DeGrom, obviously, but he pitched today, which was great.
And the Mets bullpen blew it.
Yeah, they did. But yeah, at the end of the day, you have, especially like you were saying, it's in a COVID season. I think if people didn't learn enough last year, you got to have those guys ready to plug in. And it sucks in the weekly leagues because you can't really do that if announcement comes on Tuesday for pitchers. Obviously, hitters you can sub in on Thursday, but it sucks. Hopefully, like you said, maybe it's not going to ever happen anymore after this season. This will be the end of it. But the multi-position eligibility factor is so huge for this.
Doc, here's what I'm really curious about, okay? We saw Yohan Moncada struggle when he came back for the 2 months of ball, okay? What are you doing when we find out one of your guys has the COVID? He's going to go on the IL. He's going to come back. Are you going to ride that out, not knowing?
Yeah, I mean, for every Yohan Moncada there's Freddie Freeman who feels like he's going to die and then wins NL MVP. So I totally agree with David. I think you need to load up on position flexible players. I was actually avoiding players, and I hate to make this like anything political or whatever, but from states where masks aren't as mandated, Florida's, the Texas, because figure there's temptation for people to go out and a greater chance for them to contract it. And us living in the Maryland area, people still wear masks at every public facility they go to. So it's a little surprising the Nationals had that. But once again, I mean, this is just a roulette. And last year it was the Cardinals and the Marlins that had the big outbreaks. Now it's the Nats. And the thing is, it's so unfortunate. It can literally take one person to spread to a clubhouse. So, everybody kind of has the same chance moving forward. Once again, we had a 60-game sample last season. So this whole COVID thing, we're still kind of playing by ear. And I think you just have to be very active. I think that's the key to trying to have best success.
Art, I never even considered not drafting the Texas Rangers, any of those guys, even though that stadium's full up. That's a great point from Doc. How do you feel about that? You avoiding those guys?
I don't want to give Doc credit for making a good point, but I agree with you. It was a good point. I did not. Texas, I have Nate Lowe, so I'm sitting pretty good. I have
You're
Nate
not
Lowe
taking
in a
many
lot of
Rangers
places.
regardless.
Yeah, I'm not taking many Rangers regardless. I took Dane Dunning, and they're using him as an opener now, so that's grinding my gears, to use a Peter Griffin phrase. The thing that I want to know, and the thing that I'm encouraged by, is that they lost one series with the Nationals. They lost 2-3 weeks for the Cardinals last year. Can they do this where they don't lose 2 weeks, 3 weeks? That was horrible for the Cardinals and the Marlins last year, trying to get through it. Have they figured out a process to where they can field a roster at least, so that they're not missing that many games? It seems to me, now this was a small outbreak, it seems to me that they have at least figured out something, or I hope, maybe I'm just wishful thinking, but I'm hoping they figured out something so that we're not looking at like 2 weeks of no Cardinals games and you're sitting with Paul Goldschmidt on your bench for 2 weeks.
It's tough on the fans. It's tough for us fantasy baseball guys. We have no idea what's coming. And just like Mendy pointed out earlier, then they're going to end up doing the 7-inning games. They're going to be short at bats or short innings. And here we are, right? It's tough. I'm going to leave it at that there. I'm so tired of talking about the Rona. It's a part of our lives. It is what it is. It's a battle, but we can't see it coming. We just got to roll with it at this point. Let's have a good time. I'm going to do a points check right now. We got D. Mendy with 8, Doc 10 in the lead. Art, you're bringing up the rear a little bit. 7. We're all in this. We're all everyone.
All right.
Okay, feeling good.
I'm just
Wow.
encouraged. I have 7.
Oh man.
One of the biggest things to talk about early in baseball and spring training as well is velo. It's one of the things you can actually point to as a good thing or good sign or a bad one. Okay. Shohei Ohtani put on a show last night. I hope you guys were able to stay up and watch it. In his very first at bat, I think you mentioned earlier, 115 off his bat. It was a blast. Right? Then he goes out there and fires 101 from the mound. This has never happened in baseball ever. Do you like what's happening for Anaheim, D. Mendy? Do you like that this might work out for Shohei Ohtani and Joe Madden over in the Sunshine State?
Yeah, I mean, who does not love seeing someone that can hit and pitch? I mean, and actually can hit well. I mean, he's a better hitter than pitcher at this point, but I mean, how many guys in history could you say can throw 100 and hit a ball over 100? Like that is just mind-boggling to me. And how hard he hit that ball he hit off of Dylan Cease. They had it mic'd up and you could hear the crack of the bat and how hard he hit it. And I was like, how can you do that? And then throw 101 or it's if once he gets control, which is his big problem when he pitches, he walks a ton of guys. I think he had like 5 walks the other night. And Joe Madden left him in too long so he could get the win. But once he hones his control, I mean, he's got strikeout stuff. He's got 30 home run power in his bat. I don't know what the record is for home runs and like wins in the game. Like to get a win and you get a home run in that game, but it can't be much. And I'm sure he's probably got a chance to probably break it if the way he's playing right now.
Doc, I don't know if you noticed last night. D. Mendy pointed to it. Madden left Ohtani in way too late. He lost his control there, but was absolutely dealing. Are you an Ohtani owner in fantasy baseball?
I'm not, because it provides so much stress, and he's just a fun guy to watch, and I don't want to have fantasy implications. I want to enjoy the spectacle. And I want to go back to 3 seasons ago because he had arguably one of the best weeks ever in baseball. One game when he pitched, he carried a perfect game into the 7th inning and struck out 12 against Oakland to go 2-0 as a pitcher that week. And then hitting that week, he went 6 for 13 with 3 homers and 7 RBIs. So even though it wasn't the same game, we've seen him be dominant on both sides of the baseball within the same week. I just worry, how sustainable is this? Because you're overusing so many muscles. I mean, how many times do you see pitchers or players both hit and pitch consistently? I wish they'd keep him as one, maybe have him as like an emergency starter or somebody that's going to throw 2 or 3 innings in the middle of the game. I feel like that would make better use of his skills, but man, is he joy to watch.
I'm looking up right now. I don't have the stat, but they said Shohei Ohtani was the first pitcher to bat second since 1903.
Interesting.
David Kirkjian.
There you go.
Art, I didn't even have Ohtani on our outline for the show tonight. Eric, Doc just went deep with the stats. Good for you. Got a point for that. Are you an Ohtani owner? You playing with this in daily leagues? In the main event, you going for Shohei Ohtani?
I mean, I feel like if you did, you're really happy. I didn't have him anywhere because I just didn't. That's another headache that I didn't want to deal with on my roster, whether or not I'd put him in as a hitter or as a pitcher. Because this week, what you would have put him in as a pitcher, and you'd have been happy through 4 innings, but you'd have missed all of his hitting, and the pitching would have, eventually gone south. And I will push back. I think there was a passed ball, which was what he got injured on. It was a strikeout, a drop third strike, or something like that, and that's what he got injured on. So he was basically out of the jam. And Madden left him in. I mean, Madden has his flaws as a manager, but he's a real player's manager, and I think that was a sign of trust in Ohtani. And Ohtani came through. It was just a drop third strike, and that's a shame. But yeah, for me, I was just I would have been too upset missing out on the home runs by putting him in as a pitcher, especially because you put in pitchers for the entire week, and so you're like, okay, I missed all of the sexy hitting that he put in, and I got 4 innings of decent pitching from him. To me, I try to reduce stress as much as possible.
Totally
Stop
understand.
hanging out with us then.
Yeah.
It's real difficult to own Ohtani in NFBC deep leagues in the main event or TGFBI, right? Because you just can't sub them in and out like you could like in a Yahoo Daily League or something like that. So I don't own them either. It's been really difficult. We kind of touched on this earlier when we talked about injuries. We talked about Luis Castillo, Jack Flaherty. These guys struggled a lot, but Kevin Gausman was down 1.5 and absolutely dealt for the San Francisco Giants. It appears through one game that breakout that he had last year might be continuing. Do you guys like Gausman? Doc, are you on that?
I'm not a big Gausman fan. Just watching him from the Orioles, you get teased by his good outings, but he could be good because he's not on the team anymore. The velo, I'm not looking at so much because it's one start. And like for Castillo and Flaherty, it was for both of them. So you have to wonder once again if it's the weather conditions. I don't think you're going to see anyone throw 200 innings pitched this year. I think you're going to see a lot of people warming up their arms. That's why Barrios got pulled after 80 pitches. Corbin Burns gave up 1 hit throwing 80 pitches, which, I mean, it was a home run, but they yanked him out of the game. I think they're waiting to ease pitchers back, arms back in, because you saw last year when they got ramped up, even workhorses like Verlander got Tommy John surgery. I think Sporer made a stat last year that there was like 40% of pitchers that I ended up on the IL at some point last year. And I think teams are kind of using that data and being a little bit more cautious with their starters going forward.
No doubt that, like we mentioned earlier, the baseball is changing before our eyes. The guys aren't really going deep anymore. D. Mendy, are you on to Kevin Gausman, though?
So I wasn't in the beginning of draft season, and then I faded away from him. One of the key things why I faded away from him is, one, he relies heavily on a splitter, which is a very kind of unreliable pitch to be able to understand, hey, this is going to be a consistent pitch for me. It's going to be something I'm going to be able to be effective day in, day out for an entire season. But the other thing that was starting to stray away or make it so I didn't want to draft him was they were saying in every single year since he kind of reinvented himself with Cincinnati that he didn't throw the splitter till closer to the middle of the season, that he would kind of wait to be able to start using it. And he would kind of so that's why you would see every single year when he would get better towards the second half of the season, he would start reintroducing the splitter. And so I didn't think he was going to start the year using it. And that was kind of scary to me. But then I'm looking at his StatCast page, and what do you know? He, in his one start, matching exactly last year. In 2020, he threw 51% fastballs. In 2021, that's 57.8%. Last year's split finger was 27.7. His first start in 2021, that was 26.7. So he's within 1% of using his split finger like he was last year. So I think, again, that's something that's huge. Because if he's already going to his splitter from day one, again, it's not going to necessarily be always a consistent pitch, but the fact that it's his best pitch and he's going to use it from the get-go and he's not going to just let it sit for half the season, I definitely think there's something there, and I kind of regret not drafting him a little bit more than I did.
I found it really interesting. There was a quote in spring training because he wasn't throwing the splitter at all through spring training. Mm-hmm. He did admit that it was rough on his fingers. So over the course of 162, can he get this done? I am betting on that. I do have some Kevin Gausman ownership. Let's talk about the bats, though. The max exit velocity through 4 days. We've seen some moon shots. D. Mendy, I know you're on to Vlad Guerrero Jr. It's not my style. I'm not going there. I haven't gone there. Talk about him. Sell me on Vlad. No one else has been able to do it yet.
Oh, right. Well, my God. So Dylan Cease was my pitcher that I talked about till people cursing me out probably. That's Vlad for as far as hitting. It's like I wrote him up this offseason and everybody kind of looked and they were like, yeah, he lost a lot of weight. But what's that going to do to his swing, right? But the thing is, Vlad was losing the weight throughout the season. He lost 32 pounds in general from the beginning of the season to basically where they kind of measured in the offseason. But that weight was gradually coming off. And if you look through the season's first 21 games, he slashed 222, 292, 383, 4 doubles, 3 homers. Then over the last 39 contests, as he was losing the weight a lot more, he was slashing 286, 351, 507, 9 doubles, 2 triples, and 6 home runs. So first of all, that brings up the point again with the weight loss factor that his hands, according to him, he said he lost 20 pounds during the season. His body felt better. His hands felt quicker. And he had a lot more athletic stance that allowed for better plate coverage and for him to make adjustments on his swing, right? So that already was positive. But then there's people that counter and say, hey, look, he's still not getting the ball in the air. The launch angle is a big deal, right? His launch angle, I don't have the StatCast page right in front of me, but it was like 4 degrees or something ridiculous. So then you hear in spring training that's up to 19 degrees, right? And that can tie into that more athletic profile. Also him realizing that's one of the things he talked with Toronto coaching staff about was that he needed to get that launch angle fixed. So that was one of the things they were constantly working things with him on. So that's when I see all these type of pieces together. And then you have the fact that he mentioned in quoting that Juan Soto and Fernando Tatis, his peers, basically taking the league by storm. He said, look, I want to be those guys. I've never worked hard. He's like, I've relied too much on my God-given talent. He said, I want to work. I want to earn this. I want to be like those guys. He came out and flat out said, like, I'm jealous of them. I need to get to where they're at. That's why what led to the weight loss in the first place. You combine all that and you get this little thing cooking up and you get a breakout from Vlad. I called him my AL MVP before the season started. I think he's in a lineup that can give him the stats to go with the award. So I drafted Vlad as many places as I could this year.
Bold statement from D. Mendy. He's giving him the MVP, Doc. I saw you shaking your head. You ain't on that ship.
Oh, I was shaking my head because I've heard this story probably 5 times of David saying, everybody thinks Vlad lost the weight after the season. It was gradual. For the first 21 games, he hit 222. And then after that, but I do like David's point of Vlad Jr. And one of the things is he's pretty much a free swinger. He has a career 8.8% walk rate and a 16.9% K rate. So he's swinging the bat a lot. And David said he's
but a 16.9% K rate is below league average. That's not swinging the bat a ton.
But I'm saying like he's the walk rate, like he's having good contact with the ball.
He has great contact with the ball. He hits the ball. His average exit velocity is always one of the highest in baseball. So he just needs to get more lift on the ball, which he's doing.
All right, David.
His velocity doesn't maintain when he lifts the ball.
Art, he went 114.1 on opening day. We know this man can crush the ball, but will he lift them in 2021?
It was a single up the middle.
Yeah.
That 114.1. So I was watching the game. I'm like, there you go,
Context
Vlad.
matters.
His average launch angle in 2021 is 16 degrees right now.
Oh, that's a good one. I haven't checked that yet. It's still early, but that's interesting.
And this is obviously it's through 42 pitches, 8 batted balls, 16-degree launch angle.
That's a good note. That's on the spot point right there, D. Mendy. Appreciate that. I'm going to give you guys the top 10 of max exit velocity going into today's work. Okay. We saw Nelly Cruz go deep twice. So he jumped onto this. He just never goes away. And I love it. I absolutely love it. We got Matt Olson up top, Ohtani after last night's bomb, Aaron Judge. We've seen him up here all the time. Then Vlad coming in at 4 with that 114. Nate Lowe. Art, you said you had Nate Lowe, 113.9. Luis Robert. A lot of names we recognize, right? Then we go Joseph Votto, 113.6.
Wow.
Jorge Soler and Brian Reynolds went 112.7 so far this year.
Was that tonight's blast he hit?
Brian Reynolds?
Yeah. Was that
Unfortunately for Reynolds, this was like it had a negative 16 launch angle straight into the ground. I don't even know how to get that. Tatis, and then coming in 11, Josh Naylor. But this is one of the things that I point to, that I look at. Let's look at these. Let's talk about these names. Joey Votto. Fantasy Baseball has given up on Joseph Votto. He had a late power surge in the second half. And he's coming out of the gate with 113.6. Art, are you going to go for this? You gonna search the wire for Joey Votto?
I'm all over Joey Votto. He's going to get the plate appearances. He's going to be hitting high in that lineup. He's got a legacy spot in the 3-hole in Cincinnati. So I'm all over it. I think, I think he's a good enough hitter still at his age to give you a solid season, one of those accumulator seasons. And if you're getting him off the waiver wire, an accumulator season like that is super valuable. If you got him at pick 325, it's super valuable. I'm all over Votto. First base is a position that I'm swimming in the deep waters, wait until it gets late, wait until the waiver wire. I love those values late at first base.
Is there anything, Doc, of this Brian Reynolds? A lot of people like him for batting average. We know he's in Pittsburgh. He ain't going to get those counting stats, not necessarily. But if he can lift 112.7, that'll play.
I like him more for batting average. I'm not a fan of. I don't think they have a very deep lineup. That's part of the reason I've faded Brian Hayes. Is I love his talent. I just don't like the lineup around him. And I think if anyone does show promise, Pittsburgh will probably trade them and try to get some value. All 4 of his hits prior to tonight were singles. I actually bet Castellanos having more total bases than Reynolds, and he homered tonight. But he's a guy. He gets streaky, and maybe you want to pick him up kind of like he has Diet Mondesi like stretches where he'll get pretty hot. Maybe he'll hit 375 over a couple weeks, but he's not somebody I'm confident long term. That the fact that he's actually on that list is very surprising.
I couldn't believe it either. D. Mendy, what about Josh Naylor, though? He's in Cleveland now, gone from San Diego. He's muscling it up early. Do you like this breakout?
Yeah, so I know I'm going to give credit to Mike Curlin because he was on Josh Naylor, I think, before I saw anybody else talk about him. And with Cleveland, again, they're lacking bats. So it's not like it's somebody that, hey, got to fight with a bunch of guys for playing time because there's not a lot of guys there. It's a guy that I think can produce with some power. He's got a great barrel percentage, great whiff percentage. So he's making great contact with the ball right now. Exit velo isn't great, but again, he's going to get the playing time. So I'm not going to go out of my way to go get him. I'm a lot more on the other 2 guys than I am on Josh Naylor. But again, it looks like there's some tools there and he's going to get the playing time.
Naylor's only 23 as well. Like, that's so young for a hitter. I feel like you can't determine what someone is or isn't. Yeah, that upside I would take someone having an everyday role.
And I also want to say the Joey Votto thing. They said he came out and was basically changed his entire swing in the sense of he always kind of shortened his grip on the bat because he was trying to make contact and he wasn't trying to drive the ball out of the ballpark. He was more focusing on being a good average hitter and getting on base. And he said this year he started like having a longer swing to be able to hit home runs. He said at this point in his career, I'm kind of saying it not verbatim, but he basically was like, I want to be able to hit home runs now. Like my career spoke for itself. I want to be able to hit the ball out of the ballpark. So he's accepting the higher strikeout rate that probably will come with it to hit some more bombs.
But you also know what comes with that. Joey Votto, the first or second game of the season, hit 2 infield flies for the first time ever in his career. Yeah, and this was a guy that for like 1,700 plate appearances didn't pop out to first base or catcher. I'm actually fading Votto. He always starts out hot. He hit 259 the first month last year, and then I think he hit like 226 the rest of the season.
Great stat from Doc. I had no idea. I knew about he doesn't hit the infield flies too often. Great stat there. Let's move on. We're going to skip a little bit of section. We've already done an hour, and D-Mendy's got to get to bed. Those eyes are starting to sag, right? Those eyes are starting to sag a little bit. So we're going to do this segment called 3 of 5. It's real simple. I'm going to ask you a question. You're going to give me 3 of 5. We'll go as fast as we can. We're not going to sit on it too much. If I see you stalling, I'm going to move on, okay? This could be simple, but last year we struggled with this one a little bit, okay? So this is really interesting. I brought this back again, okay? You guys ready?
Let's do it.
Ready.
All right. 3 of 5. Little Cheesecake at Triple Play Fantasy. Give me 3 of 5 Baltimore Orioles starting pitchers.
Matt Harvey, John Means, Asher Wojciechowski.
Wrong. Doc, can you clean up?
John Means, Matt Harvey, Man, I'm blanking.
It seems simple till it's not. D-Mendy, what do you got?
Matt Harvey, John Means, Bruce Zimmerman.
Bam. I don't even care if you looked it up. I don't even care. I don't even care. Good job. Good job. D-Mendy, we'll stay with you. Detroit Tigers starting pitchers. Give me 3 of 5.
Tariq Skubal, Casey Mize, Matt Manning.
No,
I blew it. I blew
He
it.
blew it.
Oh, I blew it.
All right,
Oh,
let's
my
move
God.
to you. He almost had it.
Tariq Skubal, Casey Mize, and Jose Urena.
That's 3. Well done. Doc, let's go to you. We're going to Pittsburgh now. I don't know any of these guys, to be honest with you. 3 of 5. 3 of 5 in Pittsburgh. Who's starting?
Chad Kuehl.
Bam.
Kill.
Jeez. You're right. It's easy till it's not.
Get out the way.
Chad Kuehl, the ghost of Jamison Tyon, and the ghost of Garrett Cole.
Doc couldn't get it done. D-Med, do you want to clean up?
Chad Kuehl.
That's the easy one.
Is Steven Brault still their starter for them? And I'm blanking on the third.
Oh, can you go back to me?
Art, what do you got?
Mitch
T-Bro's
Keller.
actually on the
Oh, that was it. I knew it.
Mitch Keller. Yeah. Chad Kuehl and golly, Tyler Anderson is in the
Well
rotation
done.
now. Yeah.
Well done. Well done. I just got to tell you guys, we got one more section of 3 of 5, but Art is closing on y'all right now, okay?
Yes.
These are going to be a little bit harder. I thought those have been incredible. I can't believe the stumpers with these terrible rotations they got. Nobody knows, right? We're supposed to be experts, right? We're analysts or whatever. and we
Right.
Can't even name.
In quotes, of course.
Through 4 days, there's 5 MLB batters that have 2 stolen bases. Doc, give me 3 of 5.
Marcus Semien, Jazz Chisholm, Cedric Mullins.
No. D. Mendy, he had 2. You got the third?
Marcus Semien and Jazz Chisholm.
Great job, David.
And
Art's going to clean it up. He's going to pass.
I know someone has 1. I don't know if he has 2. Billy Hamilton, I know has 1. I don't know if he has the second.
No, we're not getting you, Billy Hamilton. Little Cheesecake. Are you going to pass these guys on the home stretch?
Javi Baez, Mike
Oh.
Talkman, Chris Owings.
Well done. You got the other 3. I'm going to give you a bonus point. You earned it. You earned it right there.
That was good. That was good.
We got 2 more. Okay. We got 5 guys batting over 550. Yes, I know it's early. I bet you can get this. Who had these incredibly hot weekends? One of these guys was kind of big on Fab just yesterday. D-Mendy, let's start with you. 5 guys batting over 550 early in the season.
Yeah, I have Cheesecake's reaction right now. Vlad, I think, is hitting over 550 or close to it. Cedric Mullins. I'm gonna say, the catcher for the White Sox, Morent. I forgot how you say his name.
Give me a name.
I think it's like
Say the name.
It starts with an M. It's it's like Morentis or something.
I can't give it to you. That's not close. Little Cheesecake, what do you got? 5 guys batting over 550.
I think Whit Merrifield's one of them. And beyond that, I'm going to go Cedric Mullins because I know he started hot. And the guy for the White Sox.
I don't feel bad now that you're forgetting him too.
I can't remember his name. Oh, gosh. You said Vlad did it too, D-Mendy? I'm going to go Vlad. I'm just stealing his answer.
No.
Oh.
Doc, this could be for the game. This is super tight right now. Who you got?
All right, Cedric Mullins, Alex Bregman, and it's like Yasmini, but his last name I think is Mercedes.
I'm going to give you Mercedes. Yerman Mercedes. Alex Bregman is actually wrong, though. Actually wrong. We got
Oh.
Cedric Mullins. You guys all got Mullins, right? Corey Seager's been red hot. Yerman Mercedes. I don't know where this is going, to be honest.
Wait, hold on. I'm pretty sure Alex Bregman is hitting over 550.
Going into today, I apologize if he had a good night tonight. I have no idea.
Yeah, Eric, there's that doesn't matter for today's stats, Eric.
Eric Hosmer and then Ketel Marte rounding.
I
out.
should have known Ketel Marte. He's on one of my teams.
Okay, no, he's hitting 500 now. Okay, I was wrong.
Okay, we got one, and then we're out, fellas. This is for the top time at the end of the show. Starting pitchers. Oh, I actually referenced this early. I didn't even realize I did this. I might have slipped. Starting pitchers who have pitched 7 innings so far through 4 days. Doc, what do you got?
I have Zach Wheeler, Sandy Alcantara, Ryan Yarbrough, but that's wrong.
You're out, Doc. D. Mendy, what do you got? 7 innings of ball from starting pitchers.
Zach Wheeler. I'm gonna go with who did it for Trevor Bauer didn't make it 7.
6.1.
Yeah. Who had a really good start?
All right, time's over, David. You had 2 answers to piggyback off, and you couldn't even think of the last one.
Little Cheesecake for the win. For the win. Can you give me 3 of 5 starting pitchers who pitched 7 innings?
Oh my gosh, I probably can't. Did Julio Urias go 7?
Bam.
Oh yeah, he did. That's a good
Okay.
call.
Zach Wheeler
That's 2.
and Sandy Alcantara.
Alcantara fell just short. I think he went 6.2.
Yeah.
Oh,
The other
knew that.
3 guys were Savale, Zach Eflin, and in Baltimore, Doc, John Means.
John Means.
Yeah, that's right.
oh man.
How do we not say Aaron Savale?
Yeah,
Well,
how did you
I'm
not
more
get that,
mad.
Andy?
I don't know. I'm
Fellas.
a bad person.
Listen, this is an official. I don't have an exact way to keep score, but this was super close. And Little Cheesecake pulled it off at the end. 14 points for Art, and then you guys tied. I got 13 out of both of you.
Oh man.
This was a lot.
Yes.
Wow.
Thank you so much for being here. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate it. We're gonna do one of these games every month until the season is over. So we're gonna have 6 finalists. Then we're gonna do a little tournament at the end for an overall triple play champion. Art, you're today's winner. Sign us off, man.
Well, I would like to reassert my dominance over D. Mendy and Doc. I am standing as the alpha of the triple play crew right now, and it is it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling to know that these 2 are falling in behind the alpha, and I'm happy.
Eat crap.
Guys, thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate it. You guys are on a meteoric up, right? You guys are to the moon right now. I enjoy your podcast a lot. I like your banner. It's a great show. Go ahead and tell everyone where they can follow you. D-Mendy, go first.
I want to first thank you for having us on the show, because this was an absolute blast from all of us. I know I speak for all of us. I mean, playing games and the point system, and you were an amazing host. So thank you first so much for having us on the show. You can find me on Twitter at DMendio2. I usually will put all my writing out for fan tracks and then from our website, tripplayfantasy.com. You can also find me just putting stupid stuff on Twitter. Just if you go under my name, it's weird stuff all the time. And I'm always down to have conversations about any type of thing baseball. So just hit me up. And it's a great community. So I'm just glad to be a part of it and glad to be on the show today. So thank you.
Doc, I've had 0 rapport with you on Twitter altogether. This is the first time we met, but you absolutely killed it today. You had a pretty good lead there for a minute.
I know. I couldn't finish it, man.
Go ahead and tell everybody where to follow you.
So I run the AAA Fantasy Twitter account, not as much on my personal. Tambo, I want to thank you for having us on, especially for the first episode of the Triple Play kind of scoring system. Kind of like David said, this fantasy community is amazing, and we try to have people on our podcast to build connections with, and we love going on others. And this was a lot of fun tonight. Us 3 have been talking about this for weeks, getting in, and I've run the brand Twitter account. I'm always putting random questions and things of which food do you like best? What's the most overrated? Blah, blah, blah. Feel free to comment. We're all about having a good time.
Thanks, Doc. I appreciate it. Art, our champion. Go ahead. Tell everyone where to follow you.
My Twitter is art_T_Z. I write weekly article for SP Streamer on streaming catchers and stolen base streaming, and we do the Triple Play podcast. We put one out every week. Come check us out. We are not always this loose. You know, Tambo's a great host. Gives us the leeway to have a good time on here. Thanks for having us so much. This was a lot of fun.
At Triple Play Fantasy, they're doing 3 sports. You guys, kudos to you. You're on the grind, man. You're on the grind. I can only do this baseball. My wife will leave me if I do any more, right?
Hey, I feel that. That's why we have there's a team of 7 of us, and I back off on some stuff. So I totally get. I'm like, she says 2 to 3 shows a week max, and then to be fair to everything else, I totally get that.
Thanks again for being here, fellas. I really do appreciate it. It was a great show, great listen. Follow us at Open Bar Dudes and at Open Bar Ben. He's my co-host. He wasn't here tonight. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon.